On May 13th, Deadline published an article that was called Superman Legacy Audition Process Gears Up as James Gunn dives into the search to find the next Clark Kent, Lois Lane, and Lex Luthor. This article talks about what apparently is going on behind the scenes. It gives some information, we get some names, we don't get a lot of plot details, we only focus on those three characters, even though Gunn has confirmed that like Jimmy Olsen will be in the movie, but they don't mention them at all. And it gives us a couple of names for each character, or maybe just one name. I did this for my Fantastic Four fan casting video when there was some new Fantastic Four information. I made a follow-up video where I just talked about it. I want to do this for Superman Legacy as well. I want to say right up front, we don't know if this stuff is legit. Like, I'm sure Deadline has good sources. I guess my question is, let's start with Superman, right? The name that comes up with Superman, David Corenswet. He came up in my video. I think he's fine. He was in Pearl. He's in the Hollywood show. This article doesn't say this person's the lead in this. You know, they're definitely getting the role, or they're very likely getting it. A lot of it is just these names have come up. These people seem to be involved in somehow in the process, but it's not like they're down to the last 3 or even they're down to the last 10. Like, these could be 4 names out of 20. We don't know. James Gunn has not talked about, you know, what he hasn't confirmed this. He's kind of stopped doing that now, which is smart. I always thought, like, I understand why he did it. I think it's fun to dunk on bad scoopers, but on the other hand, it's like, well, once you stop doing that, then we're gonna be like, oh, that one's true. So, yeah, there's really no good reason to do it. So this covers 3 characters: Clark Kent, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor. Like I said, we don't see like Jimmy, Perry, any other villains. I've heard rumors this week that the Authority are going to be the villains in this movie, which makes total sense based on the way it's been described as some sort of like new school versus old school kind of thing. Superman representing old school, the Authority representing new school, a slightly more authoritarian kind of, you know, kill whoever. That's not exactly what it is, but like it seems like what I'm kind of reading from this is it is going to be a mix of what the Authority usually is and what the Elite is in Superman and the Elite. So like that, you know, Manchester Black Cold Cast hat and dragon wings and like just a weird name. I don't remember her name. Talons. It's probably not that. Something like that. It seems like that is gonna be mashed together. So like characters like Manchester Black will be in the Authority, and that will lead into the Authority movie. We're not sure exactly how, but that being said, those characters are not mentioned here as far as casting. Although we will get into it. One of them maybe might be. So first, real quick, this Deadline article gives us 4 names for Superman. We got David Corenswet, who I said in my fan casting video, I think is fine. I think he's probably a solid choice. He's a little bit older than I kind of expected they would go for, and Novogratz really kind of got me in a way that was like different from Corenswet. But, you know, as the front runner right now, as far as the way this article kind of positioned it, and what it seemed like happened was this article came out, gave a couple names, and then other people were like, I've actually heard this one, and I'm betting the article kind of added those in, because we got David Corenswet, we got Jacob Elordi from Euphoria. I think I also talked about him in my video. I think he's good. I think he's a solid actor, very popular. And then Andrew Richardson, who, let's look at him real quick. I'm assuming we're looking at theater performer and not tennis player. This guy. Interesting. So this guy's been in a couple things. He's in Daughter of the Bride. Is really the guy? Not in very many things. I mean, I can see it. Like, he's kind of got the Superman look. Jeez, I don't know much about him. When I read the article originally, I don't remember seeing this name. And maybe I just missed it. Unless there's another Andrew Richardson. And it's, you know, it's definitely not the most... No, it's got to be him. He's in Guys and Dolls. You know what? I don't actually. He looks right, but again, there's so many things you could kind of be looking for in a Superman. A lot of it is like charisma, kind of charm. We'll see if he's got that. But so Corenswet seems realistic, seems reasonable. I'd be shocked if his name is not coming up in these conversations. Elordi's the same way. Richardson, sure. Honestly, the fact that he's in this conversation is like maybe he is in the lead just because it's like that's an interesting pick and like I didn't know about him before. Then we got Nicholas Hoult. Okay, so Nicholas Hoult is going to come up later, but what I remember was Nicholas Hoult was introduced for this one role. That was how the article put it in, was he's going to be Lex Luthor. And then someone else is like, no, Clark Kent. And that person was another, scooper or something. And originally I was like, Lex Luthor, great choice. And we'll get to it in a little bit more detail. But with Superman, I also think that could be a great choice. I think if you look at Beast from X-Men First Class, and yes, that movie was like 10 years ago, but like he had that kind of boyish, like, I'm just a good kid who's about to get corrupted by Magneto. Like, he has that vibe. I actually think that works really well. I do think he's probably older. I think you can do young Clark, old Lex, and like I still want them to be around the same age, but like your Lex can be 10 years older than your Clark. Your Clark can't be 10 years older than your Lex unless that's what we're doing, and that just doesn't seem like what we're getting out of this movie. I have a feeling we'll get an older Lex here. I don't think this is the best place for Nicholas Hoult. I think this honestly makes him an even more qualified Luthor. If James Gunn, who has done the testing and stuff and written the movie, believes this Luthor could also play the Superman, that means we're going to get a really charming, really likable Luthor that will also be evil and stuff. But like, I think that's great. So out of these, I think Gordon Sweat makes the most sense. It does seem like his name comes up the most in these conversations. I didn't see this as kind of a Lordy's bag. I think he could do it, but it doesn't seem like kind of, I don't know. The fit isn't as correct. A lot of it depends on age, because the Gordon Sweat, Lordy, like those guys are in their late 20s. I'm imagining Holt is in his early 30s, and I don't know about Andrew Richardson. Let's talk about the Loises. You got Emma Mackey, Rachel Brosnahan, Phoebe Denver, and Samara Weaving. Let's talk about the two I'm kind of familiar with first. Rachel Brosnahan. She is Marvelous Miss Maisel, and if you've never seen that, she does not want to be buried with her golden arm, or she does want to be buried with her golden arm. If you take it from her, she comes and haunts you. She's Golden Arm from that Quibi show, actually. And listen, I watched at least 2 seasons of Marvelous Miss Maisel, and I will say, watching that show makes me physically ill. Not because the show is bad. It's a good show, by all accounts. I haven't seen it in a while, but like, it's a quality show. I cannot watch actors perform written stand-up comedy in front of an audience that's liking it. It's the most. It's got this really eerie, like, I don't know. I just never find it funny. It's always awkward. That being said, and if you haven't seen it, that's the pitch. Kind of a housewife, and I want to say like the 50s. Starts doing stand-up comedy, strikes out on her own, becomes very successful, and then it's like kind of this alternate history where Miss Maisel was also up there with like Lenny Bruce, just doing comedy clubs, getting arrested, stuff like that. I think she's a very like I don't want to say solid, because I don't think she's like the best one, but I think she's a very traditional Lois. I'll say that. She's got, like, I know her mostly from Miss Maisel, and I can see kind of a Hudsucker Proxy vibe coming from that, where she is this, like, reporter with a lot of moxie who comes in and says, hey, you're Clark Kent, but like in a more, like a modern way, but that kind of energy, like that's what we're casting for. I think she's good. Samara Weaving, I think Samara Weaving is great. I don't think, when I saw that casting here, I did not think that was the most interesting place for her. Obviously she's in Hide or Seek, the Babysitter movies, Hugo Weaving's, I want to say niece, I think, or something like that, grandniece. Let's see, what else is she in? Scream 6, which I haven't seen. Guns Akimbo, which was fine. Babylon, which I haven't seen. Yeah, like, I think Samara Weaving is more interesting to me than Rachel Brosnahan, only because it doesn't feel as obvious as Rachel Brosnahan does. And I don't want to say, I'm not saying Rachel Brosnahan is like a bad actor or anything like that, or anything. Just like, it's kind of like with David Cornswet, where it's like, do you want to cast the one that already pretty much looks like Superman and is the one that the fans like? And it's him. And I think that is kind of true of Rachel Brosnahan also. I think the reaction to the 4 of them, Brosnahan got the biggest, like, the fans were excited about that. I think Samara Weaving also has a lot of energy and a lot of moxie, so I think she would be fine. she's definitely not my first pick either, obviously. I had Keke Palmer for that one, and I still feel great about that, but I could see either of them doing it. The other two I'm not as familiar with. So Emma Mackey, the only thing I know about her is she is in Barbie coming up. And in real life, she looks a lot like the Barbie herself, Margot Robbie, who we'll get to her eventually when we do another Fantastic Four video, because it looks like that one's getting locked up soon. But, you know, probably fine. And then the other one, Phoebe Denver, let's see her. She's from Bridgerton, sure. So, like, I haven't watched Bridgerton. I watched a little bit younger. She was in Snatch? How old is she? 28. Was she, like, 1? Oh, no, they made a show of Snatch, okay. You know, looks fine. I don't know. I don't have strong feelings about the Loises. They all seem about as good as one another. No, and nobody in that list was like, oh, wow, that's a really good pick for Lois. I never would have thought of that. The same way that the Nicholas Hoult Lex Luthor, I think, is honestly kind of genius. Now, that's the last one here, Nicholas Hoult Lex Luthor. I've seen Renfield. Obviously, I've seen a lot of things Nicholas Hoult is in. Renfield, The Menu, X-Men movies, like 4 of them. And I say Menu, he's kind of a bad guy. He's not like a super villain, but he's like shitty. And the same, I guess, is true of Renfield, where he's more of an anti-hero, but he's also like, you know, Dracula's assistant. As opposed to Beast, who is more or less like a nice, normal guy. He's like a little bad scientist-y. It wasn't until a week ago, the night before this came out, when I started watching The Great, which is the show about Catherine the Great and all of her history. I don't want to spoil it because it's an entertaining show, and like it has twists and turns. He plays Peter, Catherine's husband, the son of Peter the Great. I believe is a Russian emperor or something. And his character is this very wild, like, it's described as kind of mercurial. I would say that's fair. I'd also say he's just like sadistic and kind of, he's really like, he is like a sociopath. He's definitely, there's a lot in his character about how he was raised really badly, and, you know, he uses violence to kind of get what he wants, the way you expect. But he's also really smart, at least the way that the show frames him. He's both like an imbecile and also kind of clever and speaks well. I think that show convinced me that he can have big swings. Like, he can take big shots in a role like this. And I think we need a Luthor who can project that confidence that Peter has in that show. I think that's a great casting choice if they went for it. I think Nicholas Hoult is a really, really good actor. It's really weird. I would say he has like he could play Superman. He can be understated. He can be like noble and nice and likable, and he can also be a real jerk. And if that's true, if you could do both, do Luthor, because it's harder to cast. And then you have a character who's like, because I don't think Corrin Sweat could be. I mean, maybe he could be Lex. But the thing that I want to touch on here is this Deadline article, I believe, has changed it, because I think it was changed pretty quickly. So the Deadline article said Nicholas Hoult for Luthor, and everyone went, wow, that's a pretty interesting choice, I like him. And then someone else said, no, actually, it is Nicholas Hoult for Superman. I don't know if it's both. We know Nicholas Hoult, I believe, tested for Batman, and people think he also tested for Joker at the same time, and it's like, that's great too. Get someone who can play Batman or Joker. The thing about this that's interesting is the role that is the bad guy role is labeled as Apex, right? People think that is referring to Apex Lex, which makes sense, because that is a version of Lex who I believe stole the powers of the Martian Manhunter, had superpowers, flew around, beat up Superman. I don't love starting there, obviously, for the same reason that I don't love starting with Galactus in a Fantastic Four movie. I want normal Lex before he gets superpowers and then eventually has to beat up Superman. Also, that's what the war suit is for, right? He builds a robot suit that lets him rival the power of Superman. But the thing is, I also read a rumor that said that Apex is not Lex. Apex is the code name for Manchester Black. If that is true, Nicholas Hoult would also be a great Manchester Black. when I did my video where I talked about my Superman movie, which it seems like is gonna kind of like, it seems like we're gonna get something kind of similar if everything that I've been talking about has been true, which a lot of it, you know, grain of salt, obviously. If that's true, my Manchester Black was Legion's Dan Stevens, who I love. Very similar to Nicholas Hoult. I think they probably go out for a lot of the same roles, honestly. They're both kind of weird. I would say Nicholas Hoult is a more together weirdness, right? Like he is like Menu, where he plays kind of like a skeezy, you know, rich foodie, or in The Great, he is the king, whereas in Beast, Beauty and the Beast, Legion, you know, there's a lot more kind of wildness to Dan Stevens than Nicholas Hoult. That being said, you could play Manchester Black either way. He can be really together, and he can just be like, no, Superman, I'm killing guys. Or he can be a little off as rocker, and like, you know, Superman doesn't know he's going to kill a guy, and then he kills the guy, and Superman's like, whoa, I didn't know we were doing that. I think, it's so funny, I think Nicholas Hoult would be a great Superman, a great Lex, or a great Manchester Black. If you can't see it over my shoulder, by the way, I'm started reading the Authority comic. I like it. Manchester Black is not in it, but Jenny Sparks is in it, and she is kind of Manchester Black again. Even down to the fact that she has a Union Jack also as part of her uniform. I didn't realize, by the way, when I had read this, I just assumed Manchester Black wore a Union Jack shirt and it was tight. I feel like I've seen it now, and it seems like it's a tattoo, which is cool, but different than what I expected. But like, it's so Manchester Black and Jenny Sparks, very similar characters. It seems like they'll both be in the movie together. Maybe she'll be bad, he'll be good, I don't know. But I could see Nicholas Hoult, honestly, out of all three, and based on everything we've heard so far, that person who said no, Apex is Manchester Black, that made me go like, oh yeah, that makes sense. This actually seems that makes more sense as like who I would cast Nicholas Hoult as. And that's not just because I didn't pick Hoult as my Lex, because I do think if you want a British, you want a British guy, I would assume. Now there's other characters in the Authority that he could be. It could be Midnight, or it could be Apollo. Apollo is very Superman-like. Could be the guy who talks to cities, whose name I can never remember. That character will probably be in there if they do this. Like, the thing with the Authority is they're kind of knockoff Justice League, right? You've got a knockoff Iron Man, and you've got a knockoff, or not Justice League, excuse me, Avengers. Knockoff Iron Man, you have a knockoff Doctor Strange. I wouldn't be surprised if neither of them make it in for that purpose, for that reason. People are like, these are just knockoffs of, whereas like the flying woman with the talons and stuff, I don't think people would go, oh, you know, that's just like Hawker. I don't know. I just don't think people make that connection. And I don't think you want to introduce more than 5 of them. So if that's the case, if that's what you're doing, Midnighter, Apollo, Jenny, City Guy, and then Bird Lady. So then I would leave the Engineer and Shaman. His name's not Shaman. I can't remember what his name is, but I'd leave those 2 out. And then you add Manchester Black in, that's 6. Either way, I think Nicholas Hoult would be a great Luthor, but I kind of think he's probably Manchester Black. I don't know. If Manchester Black is in there, if that leak is accurate, that's what I think we're getting. I think this cast is shaping up to be close to what I expected. If it weren't for the Nicholas Hoult name, I'd be like, yeah, okay, these are all fine. But Nicholas Hoult gives me a little bit more confidence. Like, we're going to get something special here. This is going to be different than what we expected. And like I've said it a million times, I have 100% faith in James Gunn. He's the best at this. Guardians 3 is the best superhero movie of the year so far. I haven't seen Spider-Verse yet. But at the same time, we just got the Fantastic Four news reported enough that I do kind of think this is probably it. And those picks are all really good. And like ones that I both would never have thought of, but I'm like, yeah, all those, well, not never. As I mentioned Margot in my thing, but like the other ones, I'm like, yeah, that's a good pick. I didn't think about it, or I didn't think that actor would do it, but it's a great pick. Whereas with these, it's like, yeah, that's one of the guys that everyone kind of thought would be Superman, and there he is on that list. So I don't think this casting is wrong. I do think I want to wait and see a little bit, because it doesn't seem like this is the final list for these guys. And I bet in a couple weeks, maybe a month, we'll have a lot more information about it, and we'll be able to say this character it's one of these 3 guys for sure for Superman, one of these 3 for Lois. If we get Gordon Sweat, Brosnahan, Holt, Superman, Lois, Lex. I think that's still pretty good. I think there's a lot of potential there for a great movie. And again, faith in James Gunn. He knows what he's doing. So I can't wait to see what he picks. And I can't wait to see maybe I'll do one of these for Fantastic Four. I mean, really, I only need to take a couple minutes to talk about those. Well, no, yeah, because I mentioned some of them, but I don't think I really went into Paul Mescal or Daveed Diggs at all, so I'll probably make a video about that. And then other videos will be coming up soon. I finished put up soundproofing in the studio. It's mostly his backdrop, but it will help with the noise. Noise probably is going to be great on this because the other walls aren't covered. But thank you for holding on. I will have more videos coming out very soon, videos I love that I cannot wait for you guys to see. Until then, follow me on Twitter, Twitch, Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever it is, whatever the next Twitter is, and listen to my podcast, Mostly Nitpicking. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you guys next time.